Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I hope that you're doing well. My name is Preacher Moss. I'm the host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Hope you had a great weekend, and we're happy to welcome you back. Before we actually get going, I have to go through a little housekeeping. Want to give a shout out to my beloved Aunt Shirley down at Duke University. She had a little illness, and we're hoping that she's going to be able to fight back. And inshallah, we're praying for you. We know how it is when our eldest gets sick. She's royalty to me, so hopefully she'll be royalty to you, and you guys will be able to make the dua for her. And I'm sure that we love you. That's number one. Number two, also, given the events of this weekend, we also want to give a heartfelt shout out to the victims in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Many of you know that I graduated school in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, about 20 miles away. We don't know what's going through people's hearts, if the mind is right, but somebody plowed into a bunch of innocents, people who were just there for the parade, celebrate holidays, something positive. And we're seeing that five people were killed, and sadly, 40 people were injured. So, wow, hearts and duas go out to those people. I mean, when you leave your house, brothers and sisters, you don't think about those things happening. It can happen, of course, anything can happen, but it's just you don't think about that. You're taking your kids out to a winter festival, celebrating Christmas, if you will, a pageant, for lack of a better word, dancing grannies. I mean, things like that. It just tells you this is the people trying to be the best they could be, enjoy life as much as they can, and you have these things going on, brothers and sisters. So I definitely want to make sure I covered those two areas. Again, on Shirley, much love to you. And also the victims in Waukesha. And also, we'll be talking about today about the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict. I'm going to bring some things in, and I hope you guys don't mind. Sometimes to understand this, you have to revisit things. And when I say revisit things, you have to look at some of the precedents that have come before this actual situation, Mr. Rittenhouse. Some of the things that actually happened before the situation that still remains in the Arbery trial that's still ongoing. But I think, brothers and sisters, it does lead us to what is intention. What is intention? When somebody says, I have a specific type of intention, and when it plays out, how are we to judge those things? How are we to understand that intention is not a solitary thing? Intention does have engagement with other people. And I think sometimes I don't know if people understand that or if it's too much of a foreign concept in current times. But listen, actions have repercussions. So as we begin this space today, and as we begin this space today, I think some of us, and I love some of the comments I've gotten, but some of us need to step back and look at what this judicial process is. Because two things happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Outside of Mr. Rittenhouse, you have Mr. Blake, who was shot by the police and who is currently and will be permanently, if you will, paralyzed. The whole scope of it, and I'm going to challenge you guys, I'm going to challenge myself to do the forensics on this type of thing, to do the forensics. Therefore, when we go out, we speak, and we're speaking very educated about these things, not to necessarily lead with our heart. Yes, we lead with our heart, but hearts, brothers and sisters, don't get convictions. Hearts, brothers and sisters, are not things you can put on the witness stand. There has to be acclamation in terms of the facts. And as soon as we can get back to being people of facts, not just facts, but theory, concepts, and proof, if you will. Proof, if you will, that frames what a person's intention is. That frames that they meant to do this. That frames that they had premeditated thoughts about doing this. And understand also, brothers and sisters, that the laws have changed. The laws have changed. People count on us forgetting. People have entire businesses that are based on the fact that not only can we, if we can't make them forget history, then we will erase it all together. Understanding clearly that this young man, Mr. Rittenhouse, he had intention. Okay? We're talking about a man who got in the car and drove, brothers and sisters, into innocent folks. I'm not going to make the stretch that he is like Mr. Rittenhouse. He's just as evil, brothers and sisters. His intentions were evil based on the fact that the results are tragic. And as we look at Mr. Rittenhouse, though he was a young man, brothers and sisters, somehow, some way, the magic has happened. And now we don't look at his intentions. You know what we look at? We look at his rights. And as soon as we as a society or community can get people to look at intentions and stop worrying about everybody's rights, I think, brothers and sisters, not only will we be a better society, a safer society, we'll be a much more educated society. Shout out, Aunt Shirley. Let's get this thing rolling, Satana. Preacher Moss, the SOS. All right, brothers, this is Preacher Moss. I'm back on the scene. I hope you're doing well. Listen, before we get into this thing, we want to make sure that we shouting out some of our faithful, some of our people that come and drop through and share their good vibes with us. I'm talking about people in the comment section, better known as the Shout Out family or the SOS soldiers. You know what? We have a lot of things to cover today, because I did a little digging, brothers and sisters, and I hope that you allow me and show me a little patience to bring it in. Also want to give a shout out to my main man at Jazz in Houston, Texas, who is running Convenient Urgent Care, who's going to be one of our newest sponsors. So shout out and welcome to Convenience Urgent Care in Houston, Texas. Satana, let's go and get our people in here. I know it's the weekend. What's going on, Sister Ree? I hope you are feeling a lot better, and I hope that that turkey is that we dropped by is gonna do you some good and make you feel better. Remember, before you eat that turkey, pray for us. You know, we need those blessings. Glad to see you on the show. Shout out to Derek and of course my main man Juwan. Next up, my main man Altaf Rashid. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's going on, Altaf? Good to see you on the show, my brother, Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, our Canadian ambassador to the show. Thank you for tuning in. And if you have anything that you want to throw on the fire about this particular topic, please do. Yeah, please do, because the gun control situation in Toronto is a lot different than it is here. But looking at some statistics that are out there, it's interesting how minorities are viewed actually in Toronto in terms of gun violence and overall crime. Stick with us, Brother Altaf. Next up. All right, Bilal Salahuddin. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother. And your beautiful wife, Sister Sonia. Thank you so much for tuning into the show, brother. I hope that you are doing well. You're blessed. You had a great weekend. Thank you for tuning in and representing the Salahuddin family on the Shout Out Show. Thank you, brother. Next up, we got Sister Mary, better known as Mama Son to me, who's saying, good day, SOS family. We appreciate you, Mama Son. Thank you for letting us put the studio in your house. No, I'm just kidding. We appreciate you, and thank you so much. Shout outs also to Aunt Maxine and Aunt Florence and Aunt Dottie. All right, next up, what's the show without having your consultant producer, brothers and sisters? That would be Mr. Satana Whitfield, who's working the back, the one and the twos, making sure that I can move around with my hands and that this thing comes across correctly and the buttons are hit, making this as professional a show as we can have it. All right. Kyle Rittenhouse verdict versus the United States. Let me say that again. Kyle Rittenhouse verdict versus the United States, which is actually Kyle Rittenhouse's rights as being a part of the United States affected the verdict. Did you see what I did there? Kyle Rittenhouse being in the United States affected his verdict. Let me take us back, brothers and sisters. Let me take us back. Just recently, in the great state of Idaho, a hotel was going to be hosting a conference about gun rights. And the conference was going for about $4,000 for a day, $5,000 for a day. And you say that is extremely expensive for Idaho. Nobody want to go to Idaho. But upon further review, I feel like the NFL, throw your flag, whip. But upon further review, we said, why will people pay that much money to go to Idaho for a gun conference? Don't nobody care about gun control in Idaho. They have it. They do what they want to. The reason why it was so much, brothers and sisters, is that the featured speaker was going to be George Zimmerman. That George Zimmerman. You see, January 2013, George Zimmerman was found not guilty, acquitted on all charges of killing a 17-year-old black youth named Trayvon Martin. And even with the help of 911 tape, even listening to the person saying, leave this young man alone, he still somehow befuddled the system, followed this young man, I guess picked a fight, and wound up killing him. This would be the lead-in, brothers and sisters, for Black Lives Matter. I won't go into that right now, but follow me, brothers and sisters. The precedent was set with George Zimmerman for a thing called stand your ground. And the idea about stand your ground, brothers and sisters, is that it gave people preemptive, let me say it, preemptive rights. If they felt threatened preemptively, they could react. This has been the last, I want to say 10 years, a bedrock for gun violence here in the United States. Let me even tell you even a little bit more about this. It's not just black folks killing folks with stand your ground. Guess what? The majority of people who have been killed under the auspices of stand your ground have been what? Mainly white men. And so as you get into this space talking about Mr. Kyle Rittenhouse, don't necessarily confuse this with Mr. Blake, with James Blake, who was killed by the police. You see, this was a protest, a demonstration against Kenosha police. And Mr. Rittenhouse, who does not live in Wisconsin, lives in Waukegan, Illinois, drove over with a firearm. Now, why do you bring a firearm to a demonstration? I'm waiting. Nonetheless, in court, he was effectively, and I want to say aided and abetted by the judge, and let's put this out here, brothers and sisters, potentially one of the weakest prosecutorial cases. The prosecutors put out a horrible case. The judge framed this whereby the people who were killed in the courtroom couldn't even be referred to as victims. Well, what are you referring to? Nobody can have a victim statement. You know why? Because he was found not guilty. And even if they could, he couldn't use the word victim. Here's my point, brothers and sisters. The idea, I won't say the idea, the law about stand your ground has been a bedrock for these things happening over and over and over again. And it's not just citizens using it, brothers and sisters. It is police using it as well. Even in the George Floyd case, police said, I felt threatened. Even though the man was on the ground and he had somebody on his neck applying pressure, which would ultimately kill the man, choke him out, you still have people saying, I felt threatened. Now, the thing about Kyle Rittenhouse is that it's emboldened a spirit that's out there. And this spirit, brothers and sisters, comes where large portions of the American Republic, if you will, not the American public, the American Republic, has tried to reframe itself as a reformer. And part of this reformer is I must put people in place. Just the same as stand your ground, I feel threatened. Now I have the auspices to put people in place, not just with guns, not just with police, but with laws that have absolutely no fairness, absolutely no rationale. Then the only reason that they can be put up to this point and presented at this point because you have a population of people that are scared to death. The scariest thing in America is a white lawmaker. The second thing scarier than the white lawmaker that's scared is the white person that votes for him. And the third thing that's even scarier is the black person that's behind the white lawmaker who's saying, yeah, get him. You see, the case about Kyle Rittenhouse is interesting because you can get angry, but it's about where's your humanity. Hear me now. The victims for Kyle Rittenhouse were white. Did we have the same energy, esprit de corps, the same sense of indignation about his victims? You see, that's kind of where we lost the fight. We didn't raise holy hell about these two white men that were killed and the other white man that was injured. We didn't. We, in some regards, stepped back and said, well, let's see how this white on white crime works out. We argued and we were upset and we were on edge about Kyle Rittenhouse's privilege. But that privilege allowed him to kill two people, injure another one, and he will get off. He will get off. I'm not to say that I'm not going to say he won't be retried or anything like that. I doubt it. Because in Wisconsin, and I've told you guys about the state of Wisconsin. I don't know if you were listening when I talked about Kenosha. But Kenosha is one of those spots, brothers and sisters, whereby white law affects everybody, everyone. It has good effects and has bad effects. In this case, the loss of life, it could be calculated. Nobody should ever be surprised when a white guy in Kenosha kills another white guy. Or Waukesha, or Waukegan. These places are zoned for that type of stuff. And I don't want to sit up here and come off as insensitive. No. The people lost their lives. They could have been my neighbors. They could have been my brothers. Could have been my best friends. But even in this situation, they suffered under the auspices of what? White freight. Now, I want you to pay close attention, brothers and sisters, because if they letting off white guys on something like this clear, a Negro and a Latino ain't got a chance. You don't need a gun, a slingshot. A foul word can land you in jail. I know brothers that went to jail for making terroristic threats. I know a brother went to the grocery store and he went off. He said, I'll blow this place up. Police had him locked up. No gun, no dynamite, just anger and indignation. But here's the game, though. Here's the game. If I can frame this law, brothers and sisters, if I can frame this law and give it to you in a way that it has logic, but also give it to you in a way where the logic bypasses you. The law is not for you. It's for the other. Then maybe it does work. Maybe the trick here, the magic, if you will, with Mr. Kyle Rittenhouse, maybe the trick here, brothers and sisters, is that we're watching this thing happen, but from afar. We are onlookers. We are voyeurs in the American justice system. We see laws working for everyone else, but we're on the outside of the process. Hear me now. It's like magic. It's like voodoo. It's like sometimes we want to show folks this hand, but this is the one that's really, really heavy. This is the one, brothers and sisters, that has the amount of power. This is the one that has the ability to crush and give us chaos at the same time. I can give you the numbers, statistics of how many people go to jail in the state of Wisconsin are black. And I'll say, you know what? Their numbers are so minuscule, but they represent this amount of incarceration. I won't say it because I'd be redundant. But the thing I think, brothers and sisters, is that we're in a space now. I don't know if you ever saw the Rocky film, the Rocky movie, and Rocky got in there and he started punching the beef. He started punching the beef. You know the music. And at that point in time, brothers and sisters, we forgot Rocky Balboa. We forgot Rocky Balboa was Italian. We wanted that beef to be Apollo Creed. And people said, beat that beef. Beat that beef. And that beef was a black man called Apollo Creed. Kyle Rittenhouse and the judicial system in Wisconsin have done the same thing. They tricked you. They got you in an emotional state, and we didn't look at the facts. Did anyone look at the level of prosecution, the rate of prosecution in these type of cases in Wisconsin involving white people? No. You know why? There's not a lot of paperwork on it. There's not a lot of paperwork on it. One of the reasons George Zimmerman was allowed to walk away from the Trayvon Martin case because they had something on the books, but it hadn't been tried yet. It hadn't been tried yet. And George Zimmerman walked away, but ironically, there was a black woman who was abused by her husband, and he was trying to kill her. He shot him, and she shot him. And guess what? She went to prison. God, why? Because stand your ground was interpreted differently. Now, let me postulate this a little bit. We still have publicly one more trial to go. That is Ahmaud Arbery. Now, Sister Tana and I shouldn't have done it. I gave the justice system in Wisconsin the benefit of the doubt. I said they were going to do the right thing. And when you go back and look at it, the prosecution lost that case. Hands down. I could find Calhoun from Amos and Andy to try that case, and he would have gotten a conviction. You hear what I'm saying? I'm talking about Matlock as a defense attorney. Over on the prosecutor's side, he would have gotten a prosecution. But here's the thing about Wisconsin that you should know. Wisconsin is not the state of dairy, cheeseheads. It is the state of status quo. It is a state, brothers and sisters, that has framed its existence on making sure that these things like Kyle Rittenhouse don't shake up the apple cart. And so James Blake, who's still paralyzed, he won't shake up the apple cart. And George Zimmerman, who was invited to Idaho for a conference where people were paying $4,000, $5,000 per cut, he wasn't. He, brothers and sisters, still is out there free. Where's Trayvon Martin? Let me even break this one down to you, brothers and sisters. The arrogance of this thing. And I'll give the Rittenhouse people a little bit credit. Because when all of the conservatives came to hold him up as a hero, the lawyer said, wait a minute, this is still a young man. And while I don't agree with what he did, there's trauma there. You're not coming out of this situation without scars, without nightmares, without second thoughts about things and how could it be handled differently. You won't come out of it. You'll be cursed. Kyle Rittenhouse, I'm going to tell you, bro, you're going to be cursed. But here's my other thing. And let me wade into the water kind of slowly on this one. What are we going to do? Is anyone really following the Ahmaud Arbery trial? Because there's a law, brothers and sisters, that may allow these three killers to walk. I told you, and I'm going to say it again. We have to be students students. We have to be forensic investigators on these laws that affect us. Because even in the Ahmaud Arbery trial, there's a playbook. And in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, there was a playbook. Ironically, the playbooks look very much the same. The man who actually killed Ahmaud Arbery has changed his story 2, 3 times. But why is he allowed to change his story 2, 3 times? Because the system, brothers and sisters, is afraid. Hear me now, is afraid to break the mold, to break the cycle. Personally, I don't like old white judges. I'm going to tell you why. I don't like old white judges who stay on the bench till they're 75, 80 years old. It means at some point in time, you watch black people who could not vote. You watch black people who could not hold certain jobs. They couldn't go to certain schools. And when I go back and I look at your track record, just like the man in Kenosha, I don't hear nothing about justice from you. I don't hear about how you stood up and said, wait a minute, white people, these Negroes, I don't know if that's what they call it, but these Negroes deserve better treatment. And that never happens. If you ever want to know why I'm tough on Joe Biden, and I'm tough on Trump, I'm tough on a lot of these guys, well, brothers and sisters, because you got a past. You have a past. And it's easy for me to look at your voting record. Mitch McConnell, it's easy for me to look at your voting record. Miss Pelosi, all of you, I can look at your voting record. And in the time of truth, it tells me were you a soldier or you're part of the go along, get along gang. Shout out to Kwame Brown. So let me put this Kyle Rittenhouse thing in a nice bowl for you. He walked, brothers and sisters, but they put up prosecutors who were extremely scared. They got punked. They got punked early. They got punked by the defense. They got punked by the judge. And in that space of being bullied, instead of going to the law, they looked for the law to save them. Now, there's 2 issues, brothers and sisters. Either you know the law and can interpret it, or you don't know the law at all. And in that case, it's not worth anything. It's not worth anything. You know, I was talking with a good friend of mine last week, and we were talking about, you know, Zimmerman's and the Rittenhouses, and we were talking about all this stuff. And he said, you know what? It'll get to the point now where the laws get so above us. And I'm going to tell you about this Rittenhouse thing. The laws get so above us and so disjointed for us and so not relevant for us that we won't have any laws to stand on. And just like in that courtroom in Kenosha and the courtroom in Florida, when it comes to the African American, the Latino, and the oppressed, you will not be a part of that conversation. We're still talking about voting rights in 2021. Why are we talking about voting rights in 2021? Because we're not a part of those conversations that are being had by politicians that we elect. I say elect and we don't check them. They meet in small spaces, brothers and sisters, and they concoct these things to make sure that whatsoever happens, in the end, they will be standing. In the end, they'll be protected. In the end, their kids will be protected. And in the end, they ain't worried about you. So, Mr. Rittenhouse, you got away with 1. Actually, you got away with 3. And for the people that helped them, your accomplishments. I can't be mad at his defense lawyers. You know why? They did their job. I'm mad at the prosecution because you were cowardly. You gave up. You threw in the white towel. I've never seen it before, but I saw it this time. And you threw in the towel in a way that you wouldn't throw it in for the cops. Oh, did I tell you Mr. Blake's people that shot him, they got off too? But now you know. So let me wrap this up and I'm gone. We need to be a little bit more diligent. It's not enough that the laws are on the books. It's not enough that the laws and the lawyers have conversations. We are the people that pay the lawyers. We are the people who pay the prosecutors. We're the ones who pay the judges. And the prosecution can't all be weighted against the oppressed. You can't see your tax dollars in action when you're looking at 5 to 10 and 20, 30 years. You have to know the law. So I'm going to say, hey, listen, maybe we get away from these video games and all that distraction, brothers and sisters, and read the laws that allow Mr. Kyle Rittenhouse to get off. And read the laws that the defense attorneys are trying to use in the Ahmaud Arbery case. Think about that, brothers and sisters. Think about it. So I close out. Again, shout out to my Aunt Shirley. Shout out to the victims' families in Waukesha. We want to make sure that you're doing all right. Duas are on the way. We have a comment. Fox TV was allowed to film Kyle before, during, and after the trial as a feature story, but Liverpool TV was threatened for carrying story as news is set up from the get-up. Yeah. In fact, it might be the end of Tucker Carlson. I'm predicting that. Tucker Carlson put a special on for January 6, 2020. I think everybody needs to be upset with that one. Stana, can you put your comment back up real quickly? His mother drove him there. Why didn't she understand? Yeah. She never touched the stand, brothers and sisters. Satana made a perfectly good point. And I'm not saying, hey, the game is rigged. Okay. So I'm going to get out of here. Please pray for my family. I pray for yours. I appreciate it. We want to make sure we get to our sponsors. We want to make sure that we're giving a shout out to BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Again, that's BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Check them out. If you don't want to go to the website, go old school. Pick up the phone and call somebody. Human contact. That's 1-888-496-6845. Again, that's 1-888-496-6845. We also want to give a shout out to Bayan Islamic Graduate School. Again, that's Bayan Islamic Graduate School. If you're interested in a quality doctoral or master's program for Islamic studies, Islamic leadership, Islamic education, or the world famous MDiv, and with a focus on Muslim chaplaincy, you might want to make sure you check out Bayan. That's bayanonline.org, and that's bayanonline.org. Also want to give a shout out, and we'll be having some commercials coming up. Shout out to Convenient Urgent Care, doing good things in the quarters of Houston, Texas, Parker Street, Pasadena, and Cypress, doing good things out there. Shout out to my main man, Jazz. Listen, that's our show today. Hope you got some out of it. You know, I always say, hey, listen, you know, it's just my opinion, but it's an educated one, and I would love to hear yours. Just do your homework. All right? So I'm out of here. Y'all been blessed. I've been blessed. Talk to you soon. Shout out show. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Well, team, we've come to the end of yet another show. And I have to say I had a good time, and I hope that you had a good time as well. Listen, at this part of the show, we have no more show. I could literally sing a song saying we have no more show. However, to spare all of us that embarrassment and chaos, I'm just going to say, please join us tomorrow here on the Shout Out Show, Monday through Thursdays, and every first Saturday, we do our Saturday Spotlight. Here we are again, 5 to 5:30 on the Central Time. And of course, we're going to do our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock p.m. And of course, that would be 6 o'clock on the West Coast. So, time for you to go, because it's time for me to go. I think I will do that song. Thank you for coming to the show. Thank you for coming to the show. That's all the lyrics I wrote. But you get the idea. See you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum. Shout out.